Greetings fellow painters, welcome to my channel. I was recently contacted by someone who has 3D printed this miniature from the video game Elden Ring, and she asked me to paint it up for her, so I did, to a tabletop standard. I've decided to use the two thin coat paint range for this project almost exclusively. I think the only Citadel paint I'm using is some Lamian medium. But anyways, I hope you follow along and you like the video. Let's get painting. And here it is in all its glory. I've undercoated it in desert sand from the Color Forge. Now I will also paint the base, but I'll do that last. The first thing I'm going to paint on this miniature is his skin. There isn't much of it, there is only his throat and his fingers. But I'm starting with a base coat of elven skin. I've already added some to my palette and thinned it down with water. I'm using my size 0 Artist Opus brush for this. And just plug all the skin in. It doesn't matter if you hit the surrounding details. We'll paint those over later. When the base coat is dry, it's time to add some shading and definition. I'm using a flesh wash for this, but I've mixed it in a 1:1 ratio with Lamian medium because on its own it's a bit strong. So using the same brush, I'm just adding this all over the skin. And let it settle into the recesses. I gave the shade plenty of time to dry, I'd say around 20 minutes. Now to finish off his pale skin, I'm adding a dry brush of elven skin. I still have some wet on my palette. So just get some on your brush and wipe most of it off on a tissue. And you can always test the strength on your hand. This seems fine. Then just lightly dry brush it over the skin to create some highlights. With the pale skin complete, we can then move on to the armor, and there's plenty of it on this miniature. I'm starting with a base coat of top brass, and I'm using a size 0 brush for this. Just add it all over. Of course, be careful not to hit the skin, which we just painted. The top brass has been applied and is fully dry. Now we can add some shading, and I'm using Battle Mod Wash straight from the dropper bottle. Once again, just go all over the armor. And once you're done, give it plenty of time to dry. Also, if you put on too much, just wipe off your brush and soak it up and move it elsewhere. The shade is now completely dry, so it's time to add a layer, which essentially means that we are going to paint all over the armor once again, but avoiding the recesses to let the shadows show. So I'm going back to top brass. And using my size 0 brush, I'm adding a layer. So just take your time with this and be very careful. Leave the shadows showing. Just like so. And with that we have a not so noble knight in shining armor. I would like to finish off the armor by adding a highlight, and I'm using platinum crown for this. And using my 00 brush, I'm finding all the raised areas and sharp points and yeah, adding a highlight. This will really make it pop. Next up is his clothes, which is pretty much just his pants. I'm starting with a base coat of boar hide, and I'm using a size 0 brush for this. So be careful not to hit the armor, which we've already finished painting. Just apply this all over, and if you need to, apply a second coat. But I think this covers quite well. I only mentioned his pants in the last clip, but he's of course also wearing a shirt which I've painted in the same color. Now when it is completely dry, it's time to add some shading, and I'm using battle mud wash for this and my size 1 brush. Just apply this all over and give it plenty of time to dry. The shade is completely dry, so next we can add a highlight. I'm using fur cloak for this and my size 00 brush. The best way to add a highlight is to use the side of your brush. You have much better control that way, like this. Just go around the model and find all the raised areas and apply a highlight. Next up is his cloak, and I'm starting with a base coat of Eidolon Grey. I'm using a size 1 brush for this, and when you get to the more difficult areas you might want to switch to a smaller brush to avoid hitting the details we've already painted. But for now, just add a base coat of Eidolon Grey. I ended up using 2 coats to make it cover completely. Next I would like to add a shade of Oblivion Black wash, just all over the cloak. And then leave it for at least 20 minutes to dry. When the shade is completely dry, I'm going back to Eidolon Grey to add a layer. So apply it all over the cloak, except the recesses. To brighten it back up a bit. Following that, I'm grabbing some Rodent Grey and adding the first of 2 highlights. Use the side of your brush and find all the sharp edges and apply a highlight. For our second and final highlight, we're adding some Carcharodon Grey. This is a more extreme highlight for the most raised areas, such as the end point of his cloak. Just like so. Next up is his sword, and I'm starting with the blade itself. Just apply a base coat of Cloak silver. And of course be careful not to hit the cloak. With the base coat applied, we can then add a wash. I'm going for battle mod wash here, and that's because I want it to look a bit dirty. But if you want it to look more clean, you can use a black wash instead. Just apply it all over and give it plenty of time to dry. With the shade completely dry, we can then add a highlight. I'm using Mithril Blade for this, to bring back its sharpness. And once again, when applying a highlight, it's most effective to use the side of your brush for much better control. Like so. And with that we have a dirty, sharp looking sword. Next is the sword handle, and I'm starting with a base coat of Chaos Bronze. Followed by a shade of Oblivion Black wash. Following that shade, I'm adding a subtle, thin down highlight of blue steel. With the sword complete, we can move on to his boots and all those leather straps that's around his body and waist. And to start with, I'm adding a base coat of Scabbard Brown. Just be gentle and careful not to hit the areas we've already painted. Following that, I would like to add a shade, and the shade I'm using is Battle Mod Wash. I'm still using a size 00 brush for this because I want to pick out all those individual straps on his body. So just be careful and apply the shade. Also on his boots, of course. When the shade is dry, we can highlight the straps and the boots with the very appropriately named Bootstrap Brown. Once again, use the side of your brush for much better control. With those highlights applied, we can move on to the claws. And I'm starting with a base coat of Cloak silver. Following that, we're adding a shade of Oblivion Black Wash. Following that shade, I'm adding a dry brush of Mithril Blade to create some highlights. So wipe most of the paint off on a tissue, like so, and just dry brush it on. And with that, I would actually call this model complete. However, there is a few special effects I would like to apply to the model, and there's also the base to paint. But I'm starting with the special effects. The first special effect is some Verdigris, and I have added some oxidation green to my palette, just a little bit, and thinned it heavily with water to create a glaze. So what I'm going to do is take my size 00 brush here, and apply to the armor where moisture would naturally set. I'll demonstrate on his shoulder pad. And once you applied some, quickly wash your brush, make sure it's damp, and blend it into the armor. Like so. So let it dry completely before heading on to the next stage. I went over the model and applied the paint where I thought the verdigris would naturally appear. Next we're going to do the exact same thing, this time with Antiquity Green. I've made another glaze on my palette. I'm painting the same areas but within the paint we just applied. So once more I'm demonstrating on his shoulder pad. And then quickly wash your brush, make sure it's damp, and blend it in the verdigris. Just like so. And finally we're going to add our third glaze, this time with Mythic Turquoise. And this is only for the deepest recesses of the verdigris. So once more, when you applied it, wash your brush and make sure it's damp, and blend it in to give it a more natural look without any hard edges. Do this as little or as much as you please, and the verdigris is done. The last special effect I'm going to use is Gore, made by Dirty Down. And you don't need a brush for this, just a toothpick. And I'm going to add this to his claws. So you just dip your toothpick, like so, and apply it wherever you want it. I recommend doing one string at a time and apply more if need be, later. Just like so. And finally let's paint the base. I'm using a base coat of Ashen Grey all over. Let it dry completely before moving on to the next step. Following that, I'm adding an all-over shade of Oblivion Black Wash. I'd say give it at least 30 minutes to dry. Following that, I'm adding a dry brush of Carcharodon Grey. Just apply it all over. The next step is to pick out all those details on the base, those symbols. And for that I'm starting with the base coat of Overlord Brass. This is time consuming, but worth it in the end. Following that, I'm going to pick it out, all of it once again, but this time with Hylian Red Wash. With that shade applied and dried, I'm going back to Overlord Brass to add a few highlights here and there. I'm not going crazy with this, just a few where it's appropriate. And when this is done, the miniature is complete. The miniature is complete and I hope my client will like the result. I also hope that you, my dear viewer, got something useful out of this video. There is a slim chance you have a miniature like this one, but maybe you can use some of the recipes presented in this video on some of your own projects. It was fun to paint and I'm thankful you decided to watch me work. With that said, please like and subscribe and happy painting!